There are all sorts of terms used around football that just drive me insane. For instance, I hate the term complementary football because it's the boring coaches who use complementary football, which essentially is like, oh, our offense can't be too good. Otherwise, our defense might be at a slight disadvantage. And I think that's stupid. The whole point of the sport is to put points on the board and make sure that you score more points than the other team. And the only way to do that is to score more points than the other team. So I hate the term complementary football. I hate all sorts of terms. A lot of coaches will talk about we're going to win the right way and make sure we got the right culture. And it's all poppycock, malarkey, balderdash, bull crap to make it sound as if they're doing something other than just trying to get the best football players they can in their program. Now, fans use stupid phrases too, and one of them that I think it might not be stupid as much as it's overused is the hot seat. Oh, this guy's on the hot seat. I don't think the hot seat very rarely is ever as hot as many fan bases will have you believe that the hot seat really, truly is real and viable in a lot of places, because there are a ton of different factors that goes into whether or not somebody is on the hot seat. And so today I want to go through the SEC and look at just who truly is on the hot seat. And to be frank, I think that there might not even be remotely as many people on the hot seat as you might think. I've picked out 5 coaches, 5 that are even on the warm seat, that their seats are remotely possibly putting them in a situation where they might be looking over their shoulder throughout the college football season. And so I as somebody sitting here bitching about the use of the term hot seat, I'm not going to sit here and tell you whether somebody's on the hot seat or not. I'm just here to tell you these 5 seats in the SEC in 2025 are warm. And I think you have to start with Brent Venables at Oklahoma, because it is a make or break year for Brent Venables, because if he has another season this year like he had last year, I don't think he's long for Norman. And things have changed somewhat dramatically, somewhat drastically, somewhat desperately, because I think Brent Venables is keenly aware that he is on the hot seat at Oklahoma. You brought in a quarterback offensive coordinator combo that's supposed to make you better offensively. The defense has been pretty good, as you would expect under a guy like Brent Venables. And to his credit, he doesn't really have to worry about being on the hot seat, in my opinion, because if things fail, if he doesn't materialize a 2025 that Sooner fans want and expect, he's going to get fired, and he's going to be fired for about 12 seconds before somebody hires him as a multi-million-dollar defensive coordinator. So he doesn't have a whole lot to worry about, in my opinion. But the expectations are slightly elevated for Oklahoma this season. And if you fail to meet those expectations, I think it's pretty likely that Brent Venables doesn't come back in 2026. So that to me is like exhibit A of whether you want to argue that his seat is warm or it's hot. I think Brent Venables tops that list. I think it's a somewhat similar situation at Auburn with Hugh Freeze, because Hugh Freeze, somewhat like Brent Venables, came to Auburn with a lot of fanfare. Tiger fans were excited when Hugh Freeze was hired as their coach, because this was going to be the guy that's going to get us back to where we want to be. He's going to be in the situation where he's fighting Nick Saban for the best players in the South and fighting for supremacy in the SEC, and that has not materialized. He has not put together a real great resume, a real great string of seasons at Auburn. And the folks on the plains get a little itchy sometimes, and I firmly believe that you can be in a spot where there are too many cooks in the kitchen. And I think Auburn has always been kind of exhibit A of too many cooks in the kitchen. That if you can't get everybody at Auburn pulling in the same direction, and I think Alabama is somewhat guilty of this too. Just Nick Saban came in and said, hey, listen, shut up. We're going to do it my way. We're going to do the things I want to do, how I want them done. And if you get out of the way, we're going to accomplish a lot. But if your stupid millionaire egos get in the way, you're going to screw this all up. And so you have to have, I think, some kind of that poise. And to be frank, I think Hugh Freeze is very interested in being agreeable and well-liked more than he is. And that might be fair or unfair. It's just my opinion. Where Nick Saban was, I don't give a damn. If you like me, you're going to like what we do on the field. So shut your mouth, get out of the way, either you're with me or you're against me. And I don't think Hugh Freeze really has that gear. And so I think that's a difficult spot to win in. There are a lot of great jobs in the SEC. I don't know that Auburn is one of them. And I think one of the reasons is because there are too many cooks in the kitchen. And I think it's been on display. And I think there's a reason why they haven't been uber successful for long stretches of time. They are able to put together really great, impressive, memorable seasons from time to time. But they're not the blue blood, ultra successful, you can count on them to win 10 games every year program. And I don't think that has anything to do with Hugh Freeze. I think Hugh Freeze is a really good, really smart football coach. Now, he might be a lot of other things off the field, but the point still stands. He didn't forget how to coach football. He's been successful everywhere he's been, except for, you can argue, right now, Auburn. Can he turn that around in 2025? Putting a lot of stock in Jackson Arnold being pretty good, I think. We'll see. But if Auburn is anything less than 8-4, 7-5, they might be on the prowl for a new head coach. I think Mark Stoops is somewhere between warm and hot. I think Mark Stoops at Kentucky has put himself on the hot seat almost strictly from his very public flirtation with the Texas A&M job a few years ago. Now, to A&M's credit, I think they got the hire right. I like Mike Elko a lot. I believe in Mike Elko. And I think it's going to be really hard to not pick A&M to make the college football playoff potentially this coming season. But that really heavy flirtation with A&M by Mark Stoops almost awoken something in the brains of Kentucky fans, because that's a really good job in the idea that you're going to get paid a lot of money. Mark Stoops does make a lot of money as the head coach of Kentucky. And the expectations aren't ridiculous because Kentucky, to their credit, the Kentucky fan base knows who they are and what they are in the college football hierarchy. They know that they are not going to consistently compete and beat the Alabamas, LSU, Georgia, Florida, Auburn, Texas, Oklahomas of the SEC. I think they know that, and I think they can accept that. And I think that they appreciated what Mark Stoops had done and built at their program because he had an appreciation for, hey, you know, I got a pretty good gig here where I make a lot of money and the expectations aren't, by God, you got to win the conference and the national championship every year. And then when you don't appreciate that by trying to go like very publicly seek out greener pastures, I think that stuck in people's craw. And then you started to suck. Kentucky couldn't throw a forward pass last year en route to a really bad season. And so I don't know that Mark Stoops' seat is hot, but I think it's warm because when you have an appreciation and an understanding on a two-way street of we're not expecting you to win a national championship. Hell, we're not expecting you to win the SEC East. It doesn't exist anymore. I know that. Stop typing your comment. But I do want you to have some appreciation for the situation that you're in. And it's real easy to get scorned as a college football fan. It's real easy to be like, this guy doesn't appreciate what we do or what we've done for him. This guy doesn't appreciate that we're not up his ass, that they haven't won 10 games every year. You know what? Double birds. And so I think that's somewhat where Kentucky fans are right now. And I think there also might be some questioning about whether or not Mark Stoops, Mark Stoops has been supported nicely by assistants. I think that that question has started to bubble up a little bit of whether or not he's done a really good job of surrounding himself with really smart, bright assistants and coordinators. And now that some of those folks have moved on to greener pastures, like the Jacksonville Jaguars and Louisville, if that might not be a reason for why Kentucky has seen just a bit of a downturn over the last couple of seasons. So those three to me are either hot, which is hypocritical for me to say, or at least very warm. And there are two others. I think Sam Pittman at Arkansas is warm. I don't know that it's hot. And I think Arkansas is a somewhat similar beast to Kentucky, where their understanding of if you're going to have to play Texas, Oklahoma, LSU, Alabama, Auburn, Tennessee every year, we're probably not going to win 10 games every year. But if we could get to 9, that sure would be awesome, wouldn't it? Because 9 probably gets you in the hunt for the college football playoff. And if Arkansas can be consistently a 16 to 20 team every year, that means the head coach is doing a really good job. And they haven't been quite that. Now, Sam Pittman's done an undeniably better job than Chad Morris did, but I think those questions start to be, is this going to be the guy to get us to an 11 seed in a college football playoff? I don't think the answer to that question is yes, by the way. And I think Arkansas fans are going to come more and more increasingly to that conclusion. And then finally, I know it's early. I'm watching Jeff Lebby in Mississippi State because there are some places that, to their credit, are quick to admit when something doesn't work and isn't right. For instance, last year, Purdue fired Ryan Walters after 2 seasons because it was clear that Ryan Walters was not the guy and they made a bad decision by hiring him. I don't know if Mississippi State will move that quickly. But if the Bulldogs win 3 games in 2025, it will be that's good work. We improved. And when winning 3 games is an improvement, I think you're in a hell of a spot. So I'm not saying that Jeff Lebby's seat is hot because I think it's hard to be on the hot seat after a year, barring some sort of off the field issue. And by all accounts, that hasn't happened yet. That hasn't happened. Saying it hasn't happened yet is unfair. That hasn't happened. But on the field issues and on the field problems and lack of on the field success can be enough to get you blown out after 2 years. I'm not saying that I think Mississippi State's going to blow out Jeff Lebby after the 2025 season. I'm just here to tell you that if I had to bet my house on whether or not he was the head coach at Mississippi State on Valentine's Day 2027, I bet my house that he ain't. Those are the 5 coaches in the SEC that I think have even anything to worry about in 2025. I want to hear your thoughts, your comments. Who do you think is on the hot seat? Because we probably differ, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. Drop them in the comments below. That'll do it for today's episode of the Daily Huddle. I appreciate you making us a part of your day, however it is, wherever it is you're doing so. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. Make sure you're getting all the great college football content we're pumping out. If you're listening on the podcast feed, drop a 5-star review. It goes a long way in helping out the channel. I'll see you tomorrow for another episode of the Daily Huddle.